Hi guys, back to the second part of my fireside chat where there's no fire, but there's plenty of chat. When we left last time, I was, through my teenage years, had been diagnosed with the prolapsed mitral valve. They put me on medicine to slow my heart rate. Now at 17, my doctor took me off the medication with really no explanation of why. So, from there forward, my resting heart rate from the time I was 17 on was no lower than 90, and it would get up to 110. And I'm talking resting heart rate, which obviously isn't good because your heart was going to wear out if it's going to race that fast all the time. But I didn't continue to see a cardiologist because they didn't find it necessary. And as you go through life, you realize that I was on my parents' insurance until I was 26. Once that fell off and I didn't have insurance because I couldn't afford it or it wasn't offered to me when I went into a teaching career, you get treated differently in the hospital and by doctors. Because if you don't have the money to pay, or they think they don't have to bill you for something, you don't get the best treatment. I don't care if this is the United States. So, when I started having more health problems in my 20s. I had a car accident when I was about 21, 22. A bad car accident where we were okay, but I was driving, no airbag in the car at that time. Seatbelt did work. Well, now it really didn't work because I hit the steering wheel. And then, a couple years after that, I started having just massive pain all over my body. Just all over. Was put on different medications. Nothing helped. Finally saw the right physician. Was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. At that time, they didn't know that fibromyalgia was a nerve disorder, which is overactive nerve endings, which nerve pain is, I think, one of the most painful kinds of pain. So basically what they treated you with at the time was they were thinking of it as more of a muscle problem, and they gave me muscle relaxers, which did not help. They gave me tramadol, which totally did not help. And basically I just dealt with the pain, and you go on. The only thing they did put me on was Cymbalta, and that did help with the pain. But it did start a cycle because of so much pain and going on and off of the medication because of not having insurance. And at that time, Cymbalta did not have a generic yet because it hadn't been out long enough that I couldn't afford it. So I was in a lot of pain all the time, and I just dealt with it. I still had the heart that was racing, and by this time, I used to give blood when I was in college, and they would tell you what your cholesterol level was. My cholesterol, I noticed, was very high. It was like 230, which you're supposed to be around 200. So I knew the factors because my dad had high cholesterol, high triglycerides, and the triglycerides are what makes the plaque which sticks to the arteries. So I go on into my 30s, dealing with fibromyalgia, dealing with heart racing, everything. When I was, I think how old I am, in about 2009, I went to the doctor, and a nurse practitioner, told me I was pre-diabetic. I knew very little about diabetes because it was not something that was in my family prevalent. So I didn't know about A1C, the test. I knew that, you take your blood sugar and things like that. But she told me I was pre-diabetic and not to really worry about it, just watch what I eat. 4 years after this, I had lost all feeling in my feet, and finally was diagnosed. Actually was not diagnosed then. Was diagnosed a little bit after that as being full-blown diabetic. And looking back on when they started putting I started taking all the files, your medical files, and putting them online and giving you access to them. I looked back at my A1C levels in 2009, and I was full-blown diabetic then. Was not told and was not given any medication. So therefore, I developed polyneuropathy, which is multiple nerve damage in your lower extremities that eventually moved to your upper extremities. So polyneuropathy can be painful at first. It's burning, tingling, numbness. Mine went very quickly from the pain to the numbness. So I started on metformin and went on from there. Diabetes and heart disease go hand in hand. One will accelerate the other. Diabetes will accelerate coronary artery disease. And so I kept telling my doctors, I have a high heart rate. It won't go down. Then I had high blood pressure. I have this horrendous family history of heart disease. If you have one family member, and that family member happens to be male, your chance of having coronary artery disease, and they have coronary artery disease, goes up by like 50%. And my dad had it so bad, he had his first heart attack at 32. So they really should have done something for me. Well, about this time, I'm also the daughter of a Vietnam veteran. There are some ailments that they have identified that children of Vietnam veterans, if those Vietnam veterans were exposed to Agent Orange, which my dad was, have certain medical issues. And one of them was a prolapsed mitral valve. And so I went back to my doctor and I said, I'd like to be reevaluated for this so I have a new updated medical form, because I will get some benefits from it, financial benefits from the VA. So they did an ultrasound. Guess what? I never had a prolapsed mitral valve. Wasn't there. They don't fix themselves. I mean, God could have fixed it, but I didn't have one. I had spent a lot of years taking around a course of 8-day antibiotics before I even got my teeth cleaned, for fear of it attaching itself to that valve. So that wasn't there. So finally, we're fast forwarded to this month right now is March of 2023. December of 2022, I had an appointment coming up with my doctor. It was December 20th, 2022. And I'm going to stop right here because I'm going to make sure this is re-recording.